Hello. Hello, everybody. You can all unmute my guests. We are live. Um, so,
Hello.
welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody, live. I saw already quite a few people joining us in the live stream on LinkedIn, and we're also on YouTube. So, my name is Angelique Slop. I am the founder of Hello Monday Club. We started weekly lives in the beginning of this year where we talk about all the developments that we currently see in the world of work happening. So we keep our focus on new things that we see and especially the most interesting findings. And today we have a very interesting topics. It is we talk about the Spotify results that they published after the first year of a work from anywhere policy. I'll be discussing it with Alexandre and Marty, and I'll just give you a little bit of an intro about for them in the meantime. But in the meantime, that they are introducing themselves, we are inviting you to leave a comment and tell us who you are and where you're from. You can see in our names where we are from. And first of all, Marty, welcome. Can you introduce yourself quickly to us?
Yes, my name is Marty Constant. I am a workplace futurist and strategist, and I help you and your organizations bring your future to the present so that you can make decisions intentionally versus letting things happen to you.
Great. And Alexandra.
Sounds amazing. Workplace futurist. So I'm Alex, and I'm not a workplace futurist, but I'm a real remote work advocate. So I've been posting quite a bit about the subject on LinkedIn, but also I'm always very happy to discuss a lot of different matters concerning the remote work and work from anywhere policies within companies, but even to know what works best for which company. So a real remote first advocates, and happy to discuss Spotify with you guys, because those were some really interesting results, and hopefully it will we will be able to provide some great information for a lot of people.
Yes, thank you, Alex and Marty. So my name is Angelique Slop. I'm also a work like a future work strategist, people strategist, and very much like Marty, and this is why I invited her because we are doing such similar things, helping companies to be better prepared for the future or develop the sustainable strategies and help them, especially when I find important to make the right decisions. These are very exciting times. At this moment, we see companies having to make decisions that are crucial for the future of their organization. If you go left, right, or stay in the middle, that is actually going to have a huge effect on your future in the next 3 years or 5 years or even the next. And therefore, we are highlighting findings and looking at mainly the strategic and competitive advantages for organizations, but also for the society as a whole. So this is where we mostly be talking about today. Spotify. Now everybody knows what Spotify. Most people know Spotify, and or our users. And Alex, can you tell us a little bit more about the work from anywhere policy that they have introduced, and what does it actually mean? Because is it remote working or is it something else?
Yes, indeed. So quickly share some slides here just to have the visual going with it. I think Angelique is
Yeah.
presenting it right here. So indeed, so basically Spotify created and implemented a remote work policy, but not just any kind of remote work policy. They actually implemented a work from anywhere policy. So basically, the word itself or the term itself says a lot. It's indeed a new way of collaborating that allows employees to work from wherever they estimate being at their best. So as long as people are doing a great job, they can work from anywhere they would love to be. And that's the most important to remember. It's not, it's really they can work from anywhere. So as you can see here, the more specific, what is it, work from anywhere at Spotify. So basically people can really work from anywhere, being at home, being at some of their offices, in their hubs, in a remote location. So they're actually able to live wherever they want globally, with some small limitations, but we'll get back to that afterwards. And then, of course, also, if they are not in a hub, so they have a few hubs within the US and in Europe, then they can actually enjoy a co-working membership. So the company will pay for them to be able to go to co-working spaces in order to work not from home, but in an actual office. And the last point, which is really interesting as well, is salary based. So basically, Spotify stopped paying people based on their location. Now they are really trying to have an equal pay for everyone, no matter where they are based. So I think this is a little bit of the general information that we would like to share, so that you can understand
Yes.
what they are doing exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that starts with people being all co-located, and the other spectrum is fully distributed, even with people that are nomads. Most companies are definitely in between, and Spotify is moving to the right. So they have offices. People can work from home, and they also facilitate office spaces in different locations. People are not necessarily working from in Australia time zone and European time zone, and then also from the US. So people in the same team that work together, they have some limitations when it comes to regions. And there is a limitation in the sense of people need to have a residency. So, and that could be specific to certain reasons. And this is also why I understood they opened some offices, for example, in the Netherlands, where I'm from, which probably has to do with having a legal entity to be able to facilitate relocations to Europe, right?
Indeed.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. So why we do this is because, of course, and I see here a anonymous LinkedIn user. I don't know your name, but we see somebody say we work remote first from anywhere since day one, and it works wonderfully. It makes for a very happy group of employees, and we can be social with each other too. And we have seen over the last couple of years many of those examples, people that have been working, I assume that it means day one from starting the company, startups that have got great results, and they have built from the beginning, from having a small team, they've built fairly big companies in this work from anywhere, anywhere. But what we haven't seen is proof on large scale for a corporate company making a transition. And this is why I'm really so interested in seeing the first results popping up, because I think we've been expecting those results. We have been predicting those results, but we never have seen the actual proof of companies doing it. And today, this is the first time that we talk about it. So, Alexander, can you just move to the first results that they have published in the last? I think it was like a few weeks ago, right?
Yes, indeed. It was I think somewhere in the beginning of August, and it's black on white, so we have proof right now. So indeed, as you can see, basically, move too fast. Based on the Spotify results, so indeed, if we compare Q2 this year with Q2 before COVID-19, we see that there is actually a lot of less turnover. So it's basically since they have implemented the remote policy, work from anywhere, people are more likely to stay at Spotify and less likely to leave the company. So that is those are some really interesting numbers. 15% on a very large number of people. It's a really important number. Some other stats that is really crazy is that around 2% of the employees at Spotify moved countries. So they just moved from where they used to live and went to live somewhere else. And more US based, 4%. So that's around 300 people within Spotify moved within the US to another state to live in. So, I mean, it's almost 500 people in one company that moved just because they were allowed now to work from anywhere. So it means that people actually want to move, and some people were blocked before because of a job. So that is really, really, really interesting. We also see some numbers based on diversity. So indeed, we see that so the main hubs in the US were in LA, Los Angeles, and New York. Now, around 50% of the new hires come from outside of those main hubs. So they're not specifically located in LA or New York, which means that you get different kinds of people from different backgrounds, from different places, which is really awesome, I think. Women in leadership, I mean, it's also a big topic, aside from the whole remote topic. They moved from 25% to 42%. I think Marty and Angelique will come back to this point a bit later on, because those are some really interesting numbers. And some crazy stats also is that we see a huge increase in Black and Hispanic people being in the company. So they moved from 12.7% to 18%. So that's almost 50% increase in diversity. Even though it could still be better, it's already going the right way. So those are the stats that we really love to see. And we'll see in some other examples later on that it's not the only company where it happens.
Yeah, so the question is, what is the other side of this? What is driving this? We've all seen the studies that say the preferences, 35%, 55%. If people are given a choice, they prefer to have that choice to either work part of the time in the office, all of the time away from the office. We've talked about other remote only companies like GitLab, who has more employees than Spotify, has been a distributed workforce from the beginning. We haven't seen this at huge scale. In fact, some of the larger companies are going against this by encouraging, inviting, if not mandating people to come back to the office. But the trend here is that the preference is to have the option to work from home. And let's just talk about the women. Organizations like the Mom Project, Mom's Hierarchy of Needs, they have done massive amounts of research, and they have been eliminated from opportunities over time because of obligations. This is changing as a result of the big experiment.
Yes. And what I wanted to ask you to reflect on, Marty, as a future work strategist together with me here, is that we have seen studies, we have seen companies like GitLab that started from scratch. This is like a 12-month, this went point A to point B, it's been measured, and these are very, very clear numbers. So can you just reflect on the numbers that you see in this sheet, and how that relates to what you have come to see from your vision as a future work strategist?
Well, I think, one of the numbers that's really interesting is people coming from outside the main hub. We've seen this happen because of COVID, that people have worked in other cities. This has been very, I guess, high productivity oriented, because people aren't doing these long commutes anymore. So it makes sense that the hires are coming from there. I also like this idea of the normalization of salary structure. They're going by country, not by city and location. That to me is an experiment. I don't know exactly how that works, because that's a label of another kind, country by country. So, you know, the worker will say, well, the value of my work is still the value of my work, regardless of what country I do this in. So these are things that we're going to experiment. And I have to acknowledge Monica Kennedy here in the comments as saying, you know, there are issues. There's all kinds of issues that, you know, companies have to be licensed in other places. I know when I worked in other places, I worked in Silicon Valley and Chicago for about 18 months. And I will tell you, I got taxed from the state of California and the state of Illinois, a bit of double dipping. So it happens at the employee level too. So these are not easy issues. These kinds of things must be resolved. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I just know how it affected me as an individual.
Thank you, Monica, for that consult. I am not a tax lawyer either, and I know a little bit about labor law, taxes, mainly from Europe. Your question is valid, and I want to say that we will not be able to address that complex, but we will do that in another time, in another LinkedIn Live. And also, we are going to do like a larger, more in-depth workshop. So, Monica, please connect with us, and then I'll make sure you get invites for that. And anybody else, just leave in the comments, because these are issues that needs to be addressed, because companies needs to be compliant. But the nitty-gritty we have to leave for another time. More interesting today, I think, also to see, my reflection on this is basically all those things we say. These are the advantages if companies would move to more global staffing and work from anywhere policies. And we see basically all the things happening, with some a little bit more quicker and some a little bit more, and maybe the female leadership was already a little bit ahead. But having the opportunity to hiring people from outside the hubs, that might be more racial homogeneous, to other countries that bring a lot of diversity in terms of demographics, but also in the way people think, culture, and new kinds of education. So we will talk about in the second part of this live about what the strategic advantages are of these numbers, because why would you want to achieve people moving to another state or to another country? You know, why is that important for you as a leadership team? And we will talk about that a little bit later. But first, Alessandra, can you show me if this just Spotify? Because then it could be very specific for one company, right?
Of course, but of course we prepared some numbers from other big companies, famous companies. So I'll start with, and I just picked some numbers. There's a lot of more numbers, but just to show in general that Spotify is not the only company going that way. As you can see, Meta had even 100% increase in Hispanic and Black workers. So they actually doubled the number of Black and Hispanic people, workers they had within their company, which is awesome.
Do you know what the absolute numbers were?
I don't recall. I can look it up and share it afterwards, but I don't recall the exact numbers they have. But I can check it afterwards.
But it's doubled, so that's
it doubled. So it's going definitely the right way, right there. If we see Dropbox, also very famous, another Silicon Valley, I think, company, if I'm not mistaken. They actually increased by 126% their acceptance rate for new jobs. So for candidates applying for jobs. So it's really amazing. It's more than doubled. So everyone going through the application forms and they want to offer a job, well, they more than doubled the number of people that actually accepted the offers because of, partly because of the remote policy that they have implemented. When Airbnb, another huge company that a lot of people know, when they actually announced their remote work policy, they had over 800k views on their careers page. So it just shows that a lot of people were interested in working for them, just because they announced the remote work policy they put in place. And then the last one is Yelp, that has also some thousands of people working within the company. They did an internal survey, and within this internal survey, we saw some really, well, crazy numbers, I would say, really high numbers, that 86% of the people prefers to work remotely all the time or part of the time. So at least have the flexibility to do so. We see that 87% said that they were actually more productive and more efficient when working from home. And no less than 93% said that they actually can meet their goals. So they estimate that they can get the job done that is expected from them. So it's close to 100% of the people being sure about their capacity of working from home, and doing the job how they are supposed to do it.
Yeah. What I find interesting here, so we see basically we could put those advantages and the results in two boxes. You could see a very, very direct effect, the bottom line of the company, even this year. So if you get like 120% higher acceptance rates, you reduce employee turnover, especially. Don't forget, Spotify is a US company. There was the Great Resignation, and you get 800,000 views on your well, there is a war of talent going on. You have a very, very direct positive result on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Increasing female leadership and increasing diversity is more of the marathon. So, but if you want to also win the marathon and not just the sprint, then those are also very important results. So,
Absolutely.
if you are watching this, you are thinking about building your business case, it could be good to make that division and take some of those short-term advantages and then add the longer-term advantages to it. Your view on this, Marty?
So one of the views, and I know we said we were going to do this a little bit at the end, and it almost seems like we have, 5 to 7 minutes left, but we can't go much further without understanding these are companies and statistics that are real, and they are happening now. Conversely, we have companies like Apple, AMX, NBC, Universal, Capital One, Comcast, that are asking people to come back to the office. And some of their concerns are, we had a lot of productivity spike during the epidemic, during COVID, but there's been some analysis that the productivity has maxed out and it's not necessarily going up the way they thought it was. So there is an emphasis on productivity. There also seems to be an emphasis here by some companies for presenteeism. People get more opportunities to advance in the company if they are seen in a corporate environment. These are feelings and comments, not necessarily fact that I'm saying today, but we do have a situation where we have very credible results and experiments. And the question I have for all companies is, why not experiment and see how this works? We had a forced experiment for COVID, but why not do something intentional and see if you could get the kinds of results and get equitable hiring practices, which is where we've been really struggling with globally. And so if that is something that could be improved, why not experiment and try that out?
Thank you, Marty. I agree. Yeah, I don't necessarily call the pandemic situation an experiment because I think it was a crisis. It was a large disruption. At the same time, it was a disruption that accelerated developments. and forced companies into a future that was they were probably pushing ahead and maybe ignoring a little bit. So there's two things here. There are valid there is feelings, and there is concerns about work from anywhere policies. um, as an example, I spoke to clients and people from my network that said, well, we are going to ask people to come back to the office because we did all the new hires in those 2 years already left. Couldn't really onboard them and engage them enough for them to stay. This is a valid argument. If that happens in your company, you have to bring that in your strategic decision making and say, okay, we encountered this problem. The question is, what is behind that problem? Especially if you would look at the advantages that we just showed here, that the results that other companies have with those results. Because you can say we encountered a new problem due to a new situation, and it seems to be logical to say then we move back to the old situation. Now we can, so move away from that new problem. Well, companies that say, well, we could do that, but we see other companies tackling the new problem, coming with new solutions, and they start to have advantages that we are missing out on. Maybe not today, or already reduce the turnover, and our turnover is going up. So I think, and this is the crucial strategic question that companies need to answer right now. There is loads of things. I see somebody else just also saying something about other like things like time tracking. There is a lot of details that companies need to figure out. There's also, the good news is there's loads of resources. With Hello Monday Club, we bring those solutions also together for our audience in our events and in our workshops. We have the network of experts like Marty here. We have advocates and friends like Alex that can always redirect people also to the ecosystem. So that is all figure outable, but we do need to make principle discussions. And as Marty said, there's a group of people saying we want back to the office, which I don't think that is also, one doesn't exclude the other. You can have offices, you can hubs, you can have third spaces that people collaborate, innovate, come together, can connect, but also that could be in a context that is a virtual workspace first, where some of the colleagues might be working in other countries. And I do see that the results that other companies have, they are basically forcing the rest of the companies to follow in their footsteps. Otherwise, there's going to be a huge advantages for the companies that do their homework and take the time for investing. What do you think, Alex? What is your point of view as a little bit younger person?
Well, actually, I think indeed it's how can I say it? It doesn't cost you anything. Well, it costs some time, and you have to take the time to do it well. But why not at least check out what could be the advantages for your company by going the more remote way, or at least offering the flexibility and the possibilities for people to choose by themselves without obligating them to do anything. And then I had another statistic that is a bit crazy actually, and that will indeed confirm what you said about the whole also the great resignation and the whole quiet quitting, etc., that is going on right now. Is that by 2030 there is an estimated lack, there will be an estimated lack of 85 million global workers. So if companies are focusing only, if already globally there will be a lack of 85 million qualified workers, just imagine within some countries. So people will be, they won't have the choice to go look for people all around the globe, and there are some solutions that exist today to do that. So it's the right time now to figure it out how to do it and prepare for the future. Even if you're not ready, start slowly but surely to get ready for the change, or at least considering the change that will be happening. And that is something that I truly believe in, without forcing companies to do it today, right now, and go all the way, but slowly taking baby steps to go towards the best solution that will become more clear in a few months, years, etc. You're on mute.
I went on mute because there are suddenly renovations going on around me. So no, but Alexander, I love that, and this is what I'm saying. It's better to start now, and what marketing towards it slowly, figuring out what works for your company, and making sure you are moving to that new direction, that point on the horizon. And if you start now, you can take your time, and you are not finding yourself in a position that you have to conclude that you missed the boat, or that you have to do it like in such a quick way that it is another disruptive situation, because it will be you will be creating another crisis. Marty, you say experiment, and what would you recommend for companies? How could they experiment in such situations to this new future?
Well, I'd like to address what you said earlier, Angelique, and that is that companies will lose a competitive advantage in many cases if they don't act on trends that are happening. In order to stay competitive, as a futurist, I say there's three things. You really have to be prepared to disrupt your model, challenge your assumptions. This is challenging an assumption of presenteeism, whatever it is, productivity. It's noticing the trends and the signals. These signals have been happening for a while. I worked for a global company, and work was distributed all the time. And I had my conference calls at 7:00 at night. And this is how we've been working for many years. Many people have already been working this way. And then the last piece of it is take action. Those who don't take action end up losing. My friend wrote a book called The Gray Rhino. And the gray rhinoceroses, very often, if they're charging at you, they are upon you, and it is too late to react. And her premise is that the question is, why is it that we ignore the signals or the danger or the trends that are in front of us? Why are we sometimes so unwilling to take that action? And before I sign off here, I just want to do, it's Clemence, I think, said something about like, on this study. I'm a statistician in some regard, and I know that there's multiple variables when you run a study. What we know is what the World Economic Forum and Spotify, laid out as their results. Of course, there are other variables in the environment, but we don't know every little nuance. All we know is the broad trends.
Yes. Thank you. You have to go. You have a hard stop, Marty, right?
No, I don't have a hard stop. I just knew that we were, we have.
Yeah, we are always running over. I live in Bahia, so it's, don't worry too much about it. People that leave, you can always circle back. There is a replay. So if you miss those last 5 minutes, or, and if you want to stay around and join, because we got some comments, and I always love to ask, to get back to the comments. So Mary, first of all, highlighted this with her. By the way, Marty, great points. I agree. These are like the things that we should be doing. Although as human beings, we tend to be ostriches and put our head in the sand sometimes. Mary, one of the biggest advantages is employees don't have for professional advancement, which will increase retention. It is indeed one of the largest advantages if we do it right. And this is exactly the other way, as that some of the people say, oh, you have to be in the office because otherwise, you can't have that advantage. And I do agree that if you take away a lot of, I read something about tall people normally have more career advantages because of their height. And I am not, so you would expect me to be very long, but I am short. So you can't see that in this virtual environment. So there's many of those things that we think visibility will advance your career. Yes, if you're tall, but if you're not, so for many people there are big advantages. And Clemens, I saved your comment for last because I really I love it, and it's a good question. It's a question that we have discussed also in the pre meeting. They have been they have been presented, and obviously there is not just one thing to point out, and we cannot just say, okay, it's purely work from anywhere policy. I also don't believe that. So as far as I understood, Spotify is now working with the Stockholm School of Economics to do more in-depth research. So as soon as those more in-depth researches are being published, the results are being published, we will take into that. Elaborating on it, I do think that everything, all those future relation things are all holistic. The remote setup is a big driver of the other advantages that then in turn will become their own flying wheels forces. For example, if you already have 25% female leaders in your company, it is more likely that you get to 42 in what point would have been 10. So I really do believe that it's not just one thing, but by the time you get to 42, it will be even quicker going to 65, if that's what you actually would want. So I really think there is a lot to say to it. It could be a lot of culture drivers in the company. It could have been a company that we say, okay, their average age is below this kind of, it's a specific millennium group. They are very tech savvy. They were already working a lot from using a lot of tech tools. So their starting point was probably a bit different than a very traditional bank that would make this transition. They probably wouldn't have the same kind of results in 1 year, but they could get results if they do it right and take that.
I would suggest that it's not necessarily any age specific at all. In fact, there was a lot of data to support productivity across all the ages and preferences. In fact, some suggested that some of the younger ages struggled and stuttered a bit to start their careers because they didn't know who was on first, how to get done what they needed to get done fully remotely. So I don't think that this is an age thing so much as it is a personal preference thing. So I just wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, I think what I want to say with age is probably more the way people are already used to work, and if you come from a tech scale-up situation, you have a different starting point than when you come from a more traditional organization like a bank, where also you have all these counter forces. So it is the company that starts like your starting point. But those companies are all naturally the ones that are going first in the new pioneering policies. So they do show better, they do show results, but that is also the whole context that they're open-minded for change, to experiment. And so I think there's a lot to say to it. So but these are impressive results, as Clemens said, and I can't wait to see more results. I also would like to know if there are companies that are considering to experiment with this, put a trial in phase, say, okay, we have like 50 vacancies, start with this from anywhere and see how it works, and then we evaluate after 1 year what the results were. Any of those examples, please reach out to us. Yes, it is the Center for Freedom of Humans that I agree with. I can super relate to. And Erica says, and this is like our clue to stop talking, although Erica says we should talk more about it. We do this every week. Please join us. Please come to our next event, and make sure to sign up. So we have the event every week on Thursday on this time, and if you can sign up on the website by hellamoneyclub.com, you will get information about the events, this LinkedIn Lives event. You will get our article, inform you about workshops where we go a little bit more in depth. And any questions, feel free to reach out. We will put you in touch with solution providers or other experts. We are here to keep the conversation going. Any last words, Alex, Marty?
Well,
Thanks
go
for
ahead,
having
Marty.
me. Thanks for having me on Hello Monday. As a workplace futurist, I live and breathe and think about this every single day. So it was wonderful to talk about it in a global sense.
Yes, I love having you, Marty, and connect and share our professional visions of you. We are very much on the same page, so that's always great. And Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was
everybody here
great.
in the live, and everybody also watching the replay. Also, you can still comment and ask questions here and participating. And we'll see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
See you. Bye-bye.